right, let's start off by just watching a time lapse of a problem, the problem we're about to work on. So let me switch us over and let's hit play. And there's 1, 2. Okay, so let me play it one more time. There's a jump in the moon there, and that is caused by me pausing the intervalometer, so the exposures are normally firing every second, but for a moonrise I need to adjust the exposure compensation, otherwise the moon is going to blow out. So notice, flip back for a second, notice we still have detail on the moon up here. That would not be possible if I did not adjust the exposure compensation. And if I had done that from the beginning, I'd be underexposing the whole shoot. And I've got some nice colors and things going on here at the front that I just would not look as good if they were underexposed. So, and like right there, no reason to underexpose at this stage. So let's jump into Resolve. There it is. Okay, let's go into Resolve. I just created a new project file, a new timeline for this. I've got a raw file. This could be done kind of anywhere in the process, but keep in mind the output of this is going to be longer in terms of duration than the input file. So wherever in your edit process, you theoretically could do this kind of in your main timeline, but it's a little risky, and we'll probably see why here. So I'm just going to drop this in here. I'm just going to drag it forward. Just create a little space here at the front. So that's just about 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds. 3 seconds, I guess. I'll go for a little more. And next thing is I need to find where the problem happens. I need to find the exact frame. So I'm just going to hit play. There it was. So I'm just going to back arrow until boom. Okay. So that is, oh, you know what? I have this here. Now you can see me. Okay, so now we've got the frame. Boom. Okay, so that's the last frame before the gap, and that's the first frame after the gap. So I'm going to grab the blade tool here, and actually turn on snap. I think that will help cut right to where I am. And go back to this, and let's zoom in, and let's just make sure. Yeah, okay. So let's separate by, I don't know, whatever that is, 5 or 8 frames, something like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 frames. Okay. Doesn't matter exactly what it is. It can be approximate. That's maybe a little more than it needs to be. So let's go with 10 frames. Idea is you're going for a guess of about the amount of time that was missed in the time lapse. That gap is caused by missing time. So we're creating the time now. Next step is we need to get the moon. Basically, we're missing some positions of the moon, right? So a couple different ways we could go about creating it. We could take export a frame, cut the moon out, soften the edge, and just animate it with a keyframe over the missing spots. I've done that before. It's a little hard. Any kind of difference in the angle shows up really obviously. Also, the moon is actually moving around a little bit between each frame, right? The shape is changing. So if you were to just have the exact same moon sliding across the page, it might look a little obvious or a little wrong. So what we're going to do instead is just take a little patch of video. So actually before I do that, I'm going to just hold down Alt and drag up to create a copy. And now I'm going to use that blade tool again, and then I'm going to hit the backspace, and so now I've got this. Let's go back to the regular selection tool. Drag this over. Oops, I want to turn snap off because I'm dealing with these really little adjustments. So that's that little magnet icon, just turn that off, or the letter N. So now we can see that we actually have something that's kind of like what we want, it's just not in the right position. And so to get the right position, we're going to overlap the first frame of our patch and the last frame of the regular time lapse. And then we're going to, in the inspector tab, if that's not on, turn it on there. Under video, scroll down to composite, change composite mode to difference. And this will just make it really easy to line up that first frame of your patch with the last frame of your real video. So let's go scroll up in that same tab, and we're going to just adjust the position in X, get that about right, and then Y. And so now we've just repositioned it to be sitting right on top. Because the tower is so close here, I'm going to make one change. I'm just going to take a little bit off that patch. Notice we had a little extra. By taking some off that patch, it's going to allow me to come back down and right. It just creates a little bit of distance between the rest of the scene and the moon, which is going to be helpful to us. So let's go with that. We could get a few more frames, but that should be good enough. Now let's just take a look, see what we have here. So now we've got the moon, and imagine, ignore the buildings for now. Let's just zoom those out, and we can see that the moon is doing kind of a good thing now. It's just continuing on in its regular 1 second pace. But here at the end, it probably, yeah, it's off again at the end. So what we can do to fix that is, let's go back into difference mode. And if we went up here and just started dragging these around again, well, that's, going to misalign the front part, which we've already got aligned about as good as it can be. So we don't want to adjust those. I was just tweaking them a little bit, but really we've already taken care of that. So now we can move the timing of this second clip, and we can just keep sliding that under, until things line up. And in fact, that's good. Normally I move the front two, so you can either grab this second clip and move it, or the front two and move it. It doesn't matter, you're just changing their relative position, and that's what we're looking for there. Notice I have a whole lot extra here, so now I'm actually kind of wishing I didn't have that much left over. Could have gone with a smaller patch. So I could just shorten that down now, because I don't really need it covering this part. This part's all good, so I can actually bring it down even further. So that's looking about right. Now we're going to put this back into normal mode. And going to go and create a mask. Now I'm just placing the playhead at the front of our patch. Make sure the patch is selected and make sure the playhead is over the patch, because when we go into Fusion, that's what it's going to use. The position of the playhead is how it knows which file to pull up into the Fusion tab. So by default, median is selected. I just dragged it over because it was probably behind my video. And we're going to click on this ellipse here, and it's just going to create a mask. And we're going to move the mask, drag it from that little square in the middle, right on top of the moon. And then we're going to shrink it down. And we chose the first frame because we know the moon is actually going to be moving, right? We can see the moon moving if we drag the framing. So we'll keep it on the first frame and just kind of know that we're going to give a little more padding on in the direction that the moon is moving, in this case up and right. I'm going to soften the edge a little bit, and the goal here is to soften it enough that it's, just the background is soft. I'm not cutting into the moon at all. And we gotta also make sure that we're not bringing in anything unwanted into the frame, because that would just be floating through space, and we don't want that. So we got that out. Make sure our edge is not cutting into the moon and it's not bringing anything unwanted in. So that's looking pretty good. And then we also have the extra space up there. Back to edit. And pretty good. The only problem now is there's nothing behind it, so we can just extend one of the, either clip really, we can just extend it to cover what's going on underneath. And if we zoom out, we can see that we've corrected the problem. We have a little problem here with the blimp though. The blimp kind of jumps on us, and then it jumps back. So what I'm going to do for that is actually going to move. I'm just grabbing the edges. See a little icon? That means I'm moving the edge. I'm not adjusting where it is in time at all. So anyway, now what I'm going to do is cross dissolve. Oh, as it turns out, it's exactly the size of my patch. If it wasn't, I would need to extend my patch to make sure it's covering all of that cross dissolve, or else it's going to be a problem. If we didn't, see how this edge just got bad. Anyway, now it's clean. This could have been a little more, not a little less, just a little more. Okay, so, and that just, I don't know if that's better or worse with the blimp. In theory, we could do this whole same thing for the blimp also, with just another patch on top, but I'm not going to bother. It's almost out of frame. Most of the attention is going to be on the moon. I'm going to let that slide. But we have one more of these moon jumps. There it was. Now this gets a little trickier because in the first one, we were just dragging things around and copying layers and doing all kinds of crazy stuff without really thinking about the impact on the rest of the scene. So now I'm going to zoom out a little bit. We're just going to kind of be mindful of those, kind of a sensitive area over here. I guess I could compound clip at this point, but I'm going to try to do it without doing that and just being mindful of not breaking anything that we just fixed over here. And if it breaks, we'll put it back. Okay, so we were over here, and we were looking, I think it was right after the blimp passed. There. Okay. So last good frame, first jumped frame, and turn snap on, use the blade again, cut, turn snap back off, grab that, regular tool. So I'm going to click Alt and zoom on in. nice and close and just make sure. Okay, so I have that. Now, I think in the first time I dragged to the left, but in this case, I just need to create a gap. So I'm going to drag to the right this time. And we're going to try to remember that this should not move. I'm actually just going to lock the position of that. Should make things easier. That can go, but see, now I can't drag it, so that's a good thing. I've not noticed that, I've not done that before. So I'm going to hold Alt, and instead of just going up by one, oh, hang on. So I've got to turn the lock off. So hold Alt and drag up two channels this time, 2 layers. Come back here, relock that. By going 2, it just prevents wiping that out. Okay, so we've got whatever, similar size gap. Again, it's an estimate. And we'll make another estimate patch of about that size. Backspace key to take that part off. And now this was locked. I see. So it's locking the whole timeline. I thought I could just lock that one clip. There's probably a way to do it in here, but I don't know how to do that. So we'll go back to being careful. Okay, so we've got the 1 frame overlap. Remember, we can't drag this to the right. We can only drag the patch left. If we drag to the right, we're reintroducing that gap, because remember where this came from. It's the last frame pre-gap. In theory, you could have done it here too, but I'm just using the front. So anyway, we've got that 1 frame overlap. Let's go ahead, do this thing again. Difference. And we're going to position our patch. Go. Now remember, we've already got our 1 frame overlap, so we can't really drag this in time. We can't drag this in time, so really the only thing left we can move around is this. And oh, we just got lucky, basically. Usually that's not going to happen. Usually you'll be looking at something more like that as your first, and then you need to drag it over. In this case, it's a little less convenient because I need to move the playhead and that. So I guess the question is, do we like that better or that better? And I think this is the closer one. So we just got a little lucky. We have the exact right patch size, and this just falls in 1 frame overlap. That's all you really need, unless you had to do some kind of blend or fade. So now we just need to do the mask. Let's go set this to normal. Remember, put our playhead at the beginning of the patch. Fusion tab, same idea. Mask, drag up, or drag wherever. I remember last time we made it really close because we had that building to contend with, but now we don't really have anything. So we're going to go quite a bit looser in this mask, and quite a bit softer as well. And that's just because there could be little differences in the ambient sky color, and that larger fade is going to hide any problems. So drag that over, and looks pretty good. Let's just zoom out and see what we got. Smooth. All right, now just double check we didn't break anything out here. Please say we did not. And that was good. And our other one is good too. Now, it's important if there's several of these, this is a 500 millimeter, so at say 100 millimeters, you might have to pause for several settings changes. You might have 4 or 5 of these. Notice that, I just broke it, but notice that when we were doing the second one, we had to be really mindful that we could only really drag this second, the later piece of it around. If we found another gap in the middle of these two, we'd be in trouble, because every time we move things, we'd have to start moving all of this around. And it would just be really easy to make a mistake. I think if that happened, that's the point at which you would want to go to a new compound clip, which is, I believe, is the equivalent of a nested clip in Premiere Pro. And so, I don't know, I have a lot of bad experience with nested clips in Premiere Pro. A lot of things just break. It was really buggy. I haven't done too much of it in Resolve. I assume it's a lot more stable, a lot easier to use, and it probably wouldn't hurt at all, but I just avoid it because it's just another bit of complexity that if we can get by without it, I would rather not use it. But for sure, if I found a gap in between 2 patched gaps, I would definitely go for a compound clip, because that'll just lock everything else in, and you're pretty much starting from square one again. What did I just do? Okay, so I just randomly clicked on something. Anyway, that is how I patch missing frames in a Moonrise. And hopefully that was interesting, educational. If anyone tries it, let me know in the comments, and shoot me a copy of your post so I can check it out. I would love to see it. All right, thanks for watching. Talk at you later, I guess. Bye for now.